What's going on, Twins fans, and welcome back to another episode of Twins Latest. I'm Sam Calder. Hope you were all doing well. The Twins had a pair of spring games yesterday, and we're going to break down the good and the bad from both. We've got a highly anticipated prospect deep dive as well, along with a bunch of other good stuff for you guys today, so do not go anywhere. But before we get into all that good stuff, please be sure to subscribe to the channel for daily Twins news and updates. With that out of the way, though, let's get into the episode. And let's start with breaking down the action from yesterday's games. I mentioned the Twins had a pair, and I would touch on both the good and the bad. Unfortunately, there was a lot more bad than there was good yesterday. The Twins dropped both games, 12-1 against the Rays and 10-5 against the Orioles. There were not a whole lot of positive performances overall. There were still a few. Alan Roden, once again, performed very, very well. Went 1-for-1 with a pair of walks. He ripped a two-strike single into center field on a fastball on the outer third of the plate. He is now 3-for-4 this spring with a pair of walks and 3 well-hit balls. Walker Jenkins did go 0-for-3 yesterday, but he hit 3 balls fairly hard, including a 107.4 mile per hour line out to right field. That is now 2 balls. He has hit over 102 miles per hour across 6 at-bats this spring. Another outfield prospect, Garrett Spain, homered in his first spring at-bat, got a center-cut fastball and ripped it over the right field wall. Good to see from him. Kalai Rosario hit one out as well on a slider at the bottom of the zone. Byron Buxton had a pair of hits, including a very hard-hit double. Josh Bell ripped a double as well. And there were a fair amount of, well-hit outs yesterday. Royce Lewis had a ball hit, 107 miles per hour off the bat, got caught. Tristan Gray, same thing. I think it was 102 miles per hour off the bat, caught. Cody Clemens hit a couple balls well that were just right at guys. So bad luck definitely played a bit of a factor offensively. But as far as the negatives go, almost every pitcher yesterday did not perform well. Andrew Morris, who we haven't talked about a ton, I'll probably do a prospect deep dive on him either later this week or next week. But he got shelled against Baltimore. He gave up 4 earned runs on 6 hits over an inning and a third. He generated just 3 whiffs on 40 pitches against the Orioles B squad and didn't walk anybody, didn't strike anybody out. Taylor Rogers was not very sharp either. He gave up 2 earned runs on 2 hits and 2 walks over an inning of work. He struck out the first batter he faced on 3 pitches, then walked the next guy and kind of just fell apart from there. The other rough outings all came from guys who probably aren't going to be long-term Twins, who we haven't really talked about. So I'm not going to highlight all of them. But overall, just a pretty tough day for our Twins. But the good news is that it's spring training, and at the end of the day, these games don't count. And hopefully they can bounce back today against the Red Sox. Shifting gears from the spring action, I mentioned in the intro that we've got a highly anticipated prospect deep dive in today's video. There are 2 top 10 Twins prospects that we have not done a deep dive on yet, but today we get to cross one of those names off the list. It is starting pitcher Dasan Hill. And there's not really a consensus top pitching prospect for the Twins. Some people think it's Connor Prelip. Some people think it's Kendry Rojas. Some people even think it's Charlie Soto. But some people also think it's Dasan Hill. He's ranked as the Twins' number 7 prospect, according to both MLB Pipeline and Fangraphs. Hill is a 6'5", 165-pound lefty. He is a tall drink of water, but that works as a pitcher. The Twins drafted him with the 69th overall pick in the 2024 MLB draft out of high school. And last year, in 62 innings across single A and high A, he finished with a 3.19 ERA and 83 strikeouts to 40 walks. For a, at the time, 19-year-old, a 3.19 ERA and 83 strikeouts over 62 innings is fantastic. That's 12 K per 9, which is outstanding, but his walks per 9 was way up at 5.8. He's still very young, so I expect/hope his command will get polished up as he continues to develop, but clearly his stuff is plenty good, and the scouting reports seem to think so as well. His fastball last year sat between 93 to 95 miles per hour. He ran it up to 96. That and his sweeper are both 60-grade pitches. The sweeper sits in the low 80s, so a really nice speed gap from his fastball. And he's got a curveball that sits high 70s as well. From what I've read, his curveball is more of a 12-6 curve that just drops off a cliff. So it's good that it has a very distinct movement pattern from, his sweeper that takes a more of a slider shape. He also has a changeup that grades out anywhere from 50 to 60, depending on where you look. And that pitch will be great against righties specifically with how much it tails. So a really nice mix with some good secondary options for Dasan Hill. I think if he's going to add another pitch down the road, it would make sense for it to be a sinker or a cutter. something that comes in quicker, but 2 to 3 miles per hour slower than his fastball, with a different movement pattern. But that's a discussion for another time. It kind of seems like Hill just needs to clean up the command. The stuff is more than playable, and he generates a good amount of whiffs, but he simply cannot continue walking guys at the rate he did last year if he's going to continue climbing the ladder in the minors. I anticipate he'll probably spend most of the year, if not all, at high A again. He only threw 10 of his 62 innings there last year, and the results were not outstanding. I will be very happy if he makes the jump to Double A at all in 2026. For a 20-year-old to make that jump, which is widely considered to be the hardest jump to make in the minors, that would be a really encouraging sign for him. I personally wouldn't rank him as the top pitching prospect for the Twins, and I'll have my personal top 30 prospect rankings done sometime soon. But he's probably number 2 for me in the pitching department. I really like his profile, though, and I do think he has the upside to become an ace for the Twins. But transitioning from Dasan Hill, I teased this a bit in yesterday's video, but I want to give you guys an updated look at my personal projected Twins opening day roster. We're still in the first week of spring games, so nothing is going to change dramatically at this point, but I do have a couple notable changes in my projections that we'll get to in a minute. But as always, we've got 13 hitters, we got 13 pitchers, and even if I wanted to have more pitchers than that, you cannot have more than 13 pitchers on a roster, so I legally cannot do so. Starting at catcher, nothing changes here. It's still Jeffers and Victor Caratini. Alex Jackson is having a solid spring, but he's not going to overtake one of those two. At least I don't assume so. At first base, it's still Josh Bell, Cody Clemens, and Caratini. Bell is the projected primary first baseman, according to Roster Resource, but the Sam Calder projected primary first baseman is going to be Victor Caratini. I think he and Clemens will take up about 75-ish% of the starts at first base, and then Bell will handle roughly the other 25%. Moving to second base, ideally Luke Keeschel starts about 150 games at second base this year, but given his injury history, that's probably not going to happen. So just in case, Tristan Gray and Austin Martin can also play some second base, as can Cody Clemens when he's not at first. And just like how I hope Keeschel starts 150 games at second, I'm hoping Royce Lewis starts 150 games at third, but he probably won't, so we need a backup option or two. Those backup options for me are Tristan Gray and, if need be, Brooks Lee. Lee will also be the primary shortstop, no surprise there. Gray, I anticipate, will also be the primary backup there as well. Maybe Austin Martin can fill in. I'm not sure. He hasn't played short in a while. But overall, the left side of the infield is a lot thinner than the right side is. And it doesn't help that I excluded Eric Wagaman from this week's projections. There is an outfielder that will be taking his place. But just to recap the infield, I've got 9 infielders on my projected opening day roster. Ryan Jeffers, Victor Caratini, Josh Bell, Cody Clemens, Tristan Gray, Luke Keeschel, Austin Martin, Royce Lewis, and Brooks Lee. Martin can also play outfield, and that's probably where he'll play the most. But he can also play infield, so that's why I included him here. And speaking of the outfield, we've got 4 names that are outfield only. You got your 3 projected starters in Byron Buxton, Matt Wallner, and Trevor Larnach. That leaves room for 1 more. And I know there's been a name floating around right now that a lot of people are excited about in the outfield. That's Emmanuel Rodriguez. I'm afraid to say, though, that is not the guy that is getting the last outfield spot. I'm going with Alan Roden. We talked about him in yesterday's video. He's having a really nice start to the spring. Talked about him a little bit today as well. And outside of Buxton, he is the best defensive outfielder in the Twins system. But those are my 13 hitters, so let's move things on over to the pitching side. I've been doing some thinking on what the pitching staff will look like. Last week I had a 6-man starting rotation. I'm going to drop that back down to 5. I think the bullpen would get way too tired, way too fast. And there's a lot of solid bullpen arms that the Twins have added recently. So we're going to drop it back down to your standard 5-man rotation. And we'll start in the starting rotation. Joe Ryan and Bailey Ober are your 2 sure things for the 1-2 spots. It seems like Simeon Woods Richardson is trending towards the number 3 starter spot. But after that, things get a little tricky. You got Zebby Matthews, Taj Bradley, Mick Abel, and David Festa all fighting for 2 spots. The last 2 starters in the Sam Calder projections are going to be different than they were last week. I am going with Taj Bradley as the number 4 starter, and then the number 5 starter is actually going to be Mick Abel. Both guys pitched against starting lineups in the last couple of days, with Bradley working against the Braves and Abel against the Tigers. Both went 3 innings, both struck out 5, and the stuff for both guys looked great. Matthews didn't impress me on Friday against the Gophers. The command was off. He struggled to put college-level hitters away and gave up some solid contact as well. And with Festa, it sounds like he's still not throwing to hitters just yet, so I didn't want to include him. As for the bullpen, both Matthews and Festa will start the year in the bullpen and long relief roles in my projections, but that leaves room for 6 other relievers. I think Anthony Banda, Cole Sands, and Taylor Rogers are all very safe bets, though Rogers, like I mentioned, did not look good today against Baltimore. But we still need 3 more. I think Andrew Chafin is a relatively safe bet. I think he's got enough of a track record for that. Justin Topa, I thought about leaving out, but I'm going to include him, so that leaves 1 more spot available. And that final spot for me came down to Cody Funderburk, Eric Orsi, Dan Altavilla, and Cody Loyer-Eason. Funderburk and Altavilla I eliminated relatively quickly. I think the Twins have enough lefties that they won't need Funderburk at this point, and I don't trust the track record enough with Altavilla. The final spot in my projected bullpen is going to Eric Orsi. He needs to clean up the walks, but his stuff is really solid, and he's coming off the season where he finished with an ERA in the very low 3s. I think it was a 3.02 while pitching in an extremely hitter-friendly park with the Rays. So he's earned the final spot, in my opinion. But there you have it. That is my projected Twins opening day roster as of February 24th, as I'm recording this. This is subject to change and will change likely every week moving forward. But for now, that's how I've got things shaping up. And then to wrap up the episode, we've got our Twins player preview. The name we're looking at today, we talked about a little bit in recent days. It is Mick Abel, and we talked about him yesterday specifically after his brilliant outing on Monday. And at this point, I believe he's earned a spot in the starting rotation. He came over from the Phillies at last year's trade deadline as part of the return for Johan Duran. Eduardo Tate was the other prospect the Twins got in that deal, so a nice hefty return. In the majors last season, Abel threw 39 innings, finishing with a 6.23 ERA and 39 strikeouts to 16 walks. While his expected ERA and FIP were both in the low 5s, indicating he got a little unlucky, that's still not where you want to be. His command wasn't great, but it wasn't horrible, and that's where he struggled in the minors at times. His struggles in the majors came from giving up a ton of hard contact. While he wasn't eligible for any of the advanced metric percentile rankings on StatCast, I compared him with other eligible pitchers, and this is what I found. His expected batting average allowed of 269 would have been in the 11th percentile. His average exit velocity allowed of 91.3 miles per hour would have been in the 5th percentile, and his hard hit rate of 49.2% would have been in the 1st percentile of all pitchers. Not good. However, he was only 23. It was his first look at Major League hitters, and there were still things to like. Looking at his stuff plus grades, his only pitch with a below league average grade was his changeup, which he threw less than 10% of the time last year. His fastball, sinker, slider, curveball, and sweeper all graded out comfortably above league average from a movement perspective. He also showed really strong command on his sinker, slider, and sweeper, which is really encouraging from a young pitcher to see him have command like that on his secondary offerings. So we know the stuff is there. Now it's just about polishing it up and locating. And it's not like he needs more time to develop in the minors. I mean, across 98 and a third innings with the St. Paul Saints and the Phillies AAA affiliate, Abel finished with a 2.20 ERA and 114 strikeouts to just 40 walks. He only allowed 69 total hits and 6 homers. So clearly it's not a matter of needing more time. Despite getting hit hard in the majors, there were still signs of his stuff working. He had roughly league average chase and whiff rates, and those both would have been even higher if he had slightly better command. He struck out a batter an inning, and his walk rate wasn't atrocious. I think it's possible that Mick Abel starts the year at AAA, but I think that would be no more than, just a couple starts to get the confidence up before bringing him back up to the majors. And I went a little bit more in depth on his start from Monday's game in yesterday's video, but he looked nasty against the Tigers' projected starting lineup. I really think Abel has the stuff to turn into one of the Twins' better starting pitchers by the end of the season. And if, and this is a big if, the season doesn't go the way we hope and, Joe Ryan and or Bailey Ober gets moved, more likely Ryan than Ober. But while it's not likely, there's a non-zero chance in my mind that Mick Abel could open 2027 as the Twins' ace. He's got that kind of upside, but we do need to see the command get polished up a little bit more, as well as the hard contact. But that's all I've got, so we're going to wrap the episode there. Thank you guys for tuning in to Twins Latest. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe to the channel for daily Twins news and updates. If you have a Twins-related topic or topics you want me to talk about in a future episode, please let me know down below in the comments. But until next time, I'm Sam Calder, and I'm out. Peace.